Good morning, everybody. This is Scott with Pratt and Associates Realty. Hope you're doing well today. It's still kind of a chilly morning here in Georgia, but not bad. I wanted to talk some about the economy and some things that are going to come up in 2024 to follow up with yesterday on some more information that I've learned. Most of the information I get for these videos, it comes from a lot of resources, and I'll cite them as I talk about them. But one in particular is from a YouTube channel, and if I need to, I'll link them down below. It's called Daily Financial News, one rental at a time. I love the way this guy presents information. You need to go like and subscribe to his stuff today if you can. But I want to talk about the economy. We have 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. So that means we're definitely entering into a recession. I think we'll see the effects of that the first of the year. I don't know anything about Black Friday, if that helped rally the economy any. I didn't see much of a murmur about it, or if Cyber Monday helped rally everything in this last quarter. So I don't know, but GDP growth is negative over 2 quarters. And I think they have changed the definition of a recession. I think they said it needs to be either more than 2 quarters or something of that nature. But regardless, it looks like we are entering into recession. Also, the Federal Reserve talked about interest rate cuts at the end of the first quarter of 2024. So March, April, May. You might see lower interest rates. That might be good for a buyer who's been trying to find a lower interest rate or was not able to qualify for what they wanted. But the problem is that it will create a huge buying frenzy in these months because a lot of people are going to try to hook into that lower interest rate when they're able to do so. Talk to your bank. I would say if you're in an emergency situation, you need to buy something right now. This might be the December, January, early February might be the time to buy. If you're looking around late January, February, try to see if your lender will peg down your interest rate when it starts to dip down after that first quarter. If you're wanting to refinance, that might be a great time to refinance as well. So that's great. But then, well, as far as the supply problem, then we'll have the vast majority of Americans will be looking at the lowest interest rates in history. So that's not going to help supply. The only way that supply will get better is if housing starts increase, which they're not. A lot of builders are not building right now. And if BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard decide to dump a lot of their portfolio. I don't know when they would want to do that or how or why that situation would happen. I expect in the next 5 to 10 years. Again, following up from yesterday, I do think we're in a 10-year downward cycle. Prices are at the highest they've ever been in the history of real estate, in the history of in my entire career. And I don't see it. I don't see how it could continue to go up. But from the numbers and metrics that I'm looking at, it looks like we're teetering. It looks like it's faltering. And I think eventually at some point in the future, probably not 2024, unfortunately, but sometime in the future, housing prices should at least stabilize or start to come back down. Whatever scenario would make housing prices just tank, that's not going to happen for at least the majority of 2024. Maybe in the last quarter, they might get interest rates back up. I don't know, though. So we'll have to wait and watch and see. And this is also an election year, so this is going to be a really hard, rocky year, and it's going to be hard to indicate for things to come. We'd have to revisit the subject in the middle of the year or the end of the year in 2024 to know where things are going to go. It may seem, and I want to discuss now an article that was sent to me. It was from it was by an influencer couple about why renting is so much better than owning a home. And that might play into a lot of people's suspicions that home ownership right now is completely unattainable. And I want to talk about ways to make home ownership a little bit more attainable. And what my opinion is a real estate person researching this and watching it daily. What do you see, Scott? I mean, all you do is just open up houses every day. But I'm seeing a trend and pattern. I read about this stuff a lot, and it is interesting to me to see America's housing problem. I think we're entering in a 25 to 50 year period of something's going to have to change, something's going to have to give, because suburbia as it sits right now, and I know a lot of people get angry at me when I start talking about suburbia or attacking suburbia. There's a 25 to 50 year problem that's going to come as a result of suburbia and its unsustainability. As it sits this couple, what they said, now they took the post down because they said owning a home's not really an asset. It's a liability because you have to dump money into it. They didn't address appreciation whatsoever. They didn't address the fact that you can rent it out later and make your money back. But basically, the crux of their argument, I don't think it was well versed, but the crux of their argument is you have to go outside of the homestead, produce resources over someplace else to bring back into the home to pay the overhead of the home. And that the home does not actually pay you back. I would say that yes, it does pay you back in that it can appreciate, and at some point in time in the future, you can rent the home out and get, so you have the value of the home, the equity of home sitting there, and someone's renting and producing income that way. Passive income, well, somewhat passive. You're still going to have to maintain the stinking thing. You're going to have to replace the roof. You're going to have to, but those were things that they said were problems. This is the problem of home ownership. There's all these massive costs that go into owning a home, such as replacing the roof, the siding, the lawn maintenance, just the infrastructure of the home, like the piping, the electrical, all these things. You have to constantly renovate them and make them look up with the times, countertops. Yes, all these, you have to service your asset. Yes, you're going to have to service your asset. But long-term studies, a home that was built, 50 years ago, the couple bought it for maybe $10,000, $15,000. Today they can sell said home for $300,000, $400,000, $800,000. There's stories like that all the time. So it is a long-term asset. It's just like buying Coca-Cola stock or something. It's not something that's gonna magically produce a ton of money for you overnight, unless you know what you're doing. You're very savvy with this, and you've been involved in fixing and flipping properties before. So there is something like that to consider. But that was their crux, is that you have to go outside the homestead, produce resources to bring back into the home, and it goes poof. So the homestead itself is not making you money. And I agree with them on that. Now, they took the post down because they were completely shellacked in the comments. They said a lot of other things about homeownership that was completely untrue, or just millennial tripe, I would say. Just millennial tripe. But I can understand why some people need to rent right now. There is not anything wrong with that. When I moved out from home, I had to rent. So I think they were trying to also fight against the stigma of renting. I don't think there should be a stigma of renting. But I would say that at the end of the day, you're still going out. Like these apartments or places or homes that you rent are still in places in suburban or urban places. You still have to go outside the homestead or your leasehold estate. You have to go outside of that, produce resources somewhere, and bring it back in as overhead. At the end of the day, the cost of living somewhere is your personal overhead. So what I would say instead, what you need to do is you're going to have to find outliers, exceptional properties, things that or you have to go further out, or you may have to look at townhomes or condos and definitely, if you're really savvy and if you can afford the upfront cost of a duplex or a quadruplex, and you're okay with house hacking, you're okay with living near neighbors, and it's in an area, in a neighborhood that you're like, this is the comps stack up, then I would say you need to do that. A quadruplex, a duplex are those pieces of property in suburbia that you're living in the home, it's house hacking. You're even on your homestead, the homestead is producing for you. There's other ways that your homestead can produce for you, depending on your local ordinances and zoning laws. I sold a couple of homes down in Griffin, Georgia, on an almost 2-acre lot. And on this lot, they had this massive flat backyard. And it gently sloped, very gently sloped. Griffin's relatively flat, if you know Georgia. And so they've decided to start raising chickens, so now they get free eggs. They can raise any kind of food that they want. They can put an aquaponic farm. So they can, if they want to raise their own food, if they want to dedicate the time on the weekends to raising their own food and cutting their grocery bill down, that's a way that the property is paying them back. He also wanted to start a bouncy house business. And he has 2 acres of land there that he can store equipment on. Depending on where you live and how far out you are. Sorry, I'm a blah, blah. You can even use that as a way to store boats for people. You can make money storing boats. You can make money storing trucks. If the truck wants to park their trailer there and pay you a rental fee every month, there's ways like that. Or even having a dog sitting business, if you can get all the licenses and policy for that, I would say do that. Like, people need to get creative on ways to make a property like that produce money for them. And now the person does not have to go outside of the homestead. They can stay home. They don't have to have an expensive car that guzzles gas, gets them to work every day, and they have to just sit in traffic for 2 or 3 hours, motionless, wasting time, wasting money, going to a job they probably don't like. So that's why I'm looking at homes, or exceptional homes, outliers, things that are a bit unique and different, because there's way to make money off of those kind of properties. Now, if you're living in suburbia, you're living in a subdivision where the lot, but there's this much between you and your neighbor's house. You can stick your head in there and you get stuck. There are ways to make money from that. Like, if you can figure out a way to buy low and sell high, if you're able to time the market, if you're partnered with an agent who has all this kind of information and numbers for you and can coach you through how to possibly make money from this property. Like my condo right now, I bought for $75,000. I could sell tomorrow for about $190,000, $200,000. If interest rates come back down, I could sell for probably a little bit more than that. I would like to rent this property out, but there is nothing else I can do. And I still have to maintain it. I still have to pay my HOA, which is pretty costly. I still have to pay assessments and whatnot for the HOA. So, but the rental price that I could get out of this property, because I bought it so cheap so long ago, it outweighs the overhead cost. And I still get a profit. I still get a net. And when this property's paid off, it's almost like I have a second job just sitting here making money for me. So that's nice. That's a great thing to have. And I'm blessed and lucky that I was able to get this. And I would say the same thing for anyone else out there. If you're young, if you're just getting into, say you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you don't think college is the path for you, I would say save every dime you make and make as much money as possible in your late teens, early 20s, and try to get one of these things when the prices do start to dip down, and they will. Prices will dip down. So, yeah. But that's if in the case of this article that was sent to me, this Instagram post, I'm telling you, and if you're looking at home ownership as something nearly impossible, my goodness, I can't find anything. The interest rates are too high. All these prices are too high. Go outside. Look at exceptions. Look at different stuff. Look at quadruplexes, duplexes. If you have a spouse, and hey, I mean, is a quadruplex an option? Is a duplex an option? Let's go outside of the perimeter. Let's go way far outside of the city and try to find something that has land that's not strictly zoned. So the least you could do is grow your own food. I'm not saying, I'm not telling you to go Amish or anything like that, but that's an option. You can offset your costs by growing a tomato. That's a tomato. You paid 3 cents for the seed. If you're really savvy with that kind of stuff, go for it. If you're not savvy with that kind of stuff, then see if there's a way to store boats on your property, trucks on your property. If like dog sitting, you could make T-shirts on your premise. You could have a home business. That's the big point. You can have a small cottage industry home business on that property. Now the property produces for you. Find a property that produces for you. Now, I live here in Atlanta. Georgia's a massive state. It's not big as Texas, but it's a massive state. There's tons of different properties all over the state, and that are able to produce money. You can even have some kind of a storage facility put on as long as zoning permits it. Of course, you check with your zoning, check with building codes and permits, because even on a property zoned agricultural or all those other kind of low density zonings, they may still have requirements for what you can do and put on that property. But if it's a very liberally zoned property, make it work for you. And that's probably the lowest way you could. And eventually this property, when you decide to move out of it, you can explain to the tenant, hey, I have boats I store on the property. I have other things that I store here. I still come back and garden. And now the renter is also part of the whole property's income producing asset. You may agree with me. You may disagree with me. I understand that. but I'm just giving you ideas to be creative and that you're not stuck, that you're not put in a hole somewhere, and you're not. This whole real estate market is not just this albatross of hopelessness that sits above you and controls your millennial life, or even a boomer. I mean, believe it or not, there's a lot of boomers that are not well housed right now. There's a lot of Gen Xers that are not well housed right now. So it's not a boomer problem. It's not a Gen X problem. It's not a millennial problem or Gen Z problem. And all those generations are marketing ploys anyway, so don't fall for it. But that's what I encourage you today. And I'm sorry this video was so long. I may keep this, see if I can cut it down, but I hope that helped you. Get some ideas. You're not stuck on just this one. Another thing you do, worms. You can have a worm farm, compost farm. You could sell dirt. There's so many things you could do. Maybe in my next video, I come up with a list of everything you can do on a property that has a huge backyard that's zoned liberally that you can make money on. So I hope everything I said today helps you. I'm going to put this on YouTube. I'm going to cut it down and put it in a short so I can put it on TikTok as well, because I get a lot more views on TikTok. Y'all, thank you so much. Click like, subscribe. It helps me out. It helps the YouTube algorithm out. Have a good day.